from the perspective of Saskatchewan, and I would encourage Atlantic premiers, Premier Eby, anyone else, and possibly even Saskatchewan for the small number of folks that utilize home heating oil, of which we've largely transitioned. But the program is fine, and I think that premiers and provinces that can sign up for this particular program where heat pumps can be useful, you should most certainly sign up for it. And so we may have different views with respect to what is the most effective tool to reduce emissions in our area of the nation, in the products that we produce and provide to the world in our case. That's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about fairness for Canadian families. And so if you walk back in time, there's jurisdictions up here that have made significant investments in hydropower, for example, and other types of electricity that are available for their residents. In the early 80s, what we made the investment in Saskatchewan was converting from home heating oil to natural gas to the degree of about 85% of Saskatchewan residents now utilize natural gas, and they deserve to be treated fairly with respect to the carbon tax, the Canadian carbon tax policy as well. And so the issue isn't the policy, it's how the policy is being applied, and up until now largely has been somewhat fairly applied across the nation. I don't think anyone can say this today. And we have said that if the federal government isn't going to extend that carbon tax pause to the other forms of home heating oil, we do have a Crown utility in Saskatchewan, and we will extend that pause to those folks that utilize natural gas in Saskatchewan. That'll extend to about 85% of our residents. Largely, the folks that don't use natural gas are using propane or are using electrical heat, and they're largely in rural, northern, and often Indigenous communities. And so we're going to be looking carefully at our power utility that we have as a Crown utility as well. Is there an opportunity for us to extend that even beyond natural gas to electrical heat in the province, making the very same decision at the provincial level for our residents? That being said, that would still leave out potentially all of those northern, Indigenous and rural communities that might use propane. And so the right thing to do, we feel, is for the Canadian government to extend fairness to all Canadian families, is to, yes, extend this carbon tax pause to home heating oil, but also extend it to other forms of electricity, propane, other forms of heating sources that we are using across this nation. Saskatchewan made that investment some 35, 40 years ago. Other provinces have made those investments in other areas. I would just add to this, by the very metrics of home heating oil being dirtier than other forms, and by the affordability crisis that we are discussing here today, the same would hold true for coal and natural gas-fired power in Saskatchewan. It is the dirtiest way to generate power today. We're in the process of planning our transition away from that, but we're being charged the carbon tax on that form of what is heating close to 15% of the homes in our province. By the same metrics, the solution would be to pause the carbon tax on coal and natural gas-fired power and then provide the province of Saskatchewan or other provinces with the investment to transition away from that. And that isn't happening, but it does so to some degree just speak to the inherent unfairness of the decision that has been made. And I would ask the federal government respectfully to revisit this decision. Don't send a minister out that is going to spread divisions on how many you have elected from one party or the other across this nation, and how that might impact the decision that this federal government makes, to actually revisit this decision with an eye to being fair to all Canadian families. And I would just add to that as well. The goal here, and always has been, in particular, I would say with the conversations that we've had post-pandemic, have been about how do we work together to actively build a stronger healthcare system nationally by strengthening each of the provincial or territorial healthcare systems that we have. There was some discussion here maybe a month or so ago, Premier, between Saskatchewan and Newfoundland. I quickly had reached out to Premier Fury, where we had a discussion about recruiting teams being at post-secondary job fairs, for example, which are providing options for our graduates, to where they might work in Canada versus potentially actively recruiting healthcare professionals that are working in other areas. And I think we've sorted that out for certain between the two provinces. And I think we had a healthy discussion about that today and how we are all working together to build that stronger national healthcare system. Working together globally, for example, and attracting and streamlining the opportunities that global healthcare folks would have to locate in one of our provinces or territories, to working alongside one another in the training opportunities that we have. That certainly builds a stronger national healthcare system. And today, a lot of the discussion was around sharing efficiencies and best practices that we have in implementing technological assistance or solutions that would help our healthcare employees across Canada ultimately deliver better care. And so a good discussion, I think, in fairness, started with Premier Furey and myself, but extended to this table very quickly.